Is that Regina talking?
Yes. Hi,
Ah,
Councilman.
I can only see four people on my screen and
Oh,
Kirby's.
yeah, and I have my camera off.
There's Frank. I can now see Frank.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what was wrong, but okay, I'm muting. Are we ready to get started?
Frank, did you want to mention anything about the Mike Doyle Hike and
Yes,
Bike Way?
yes, of course. Hello, everybody. Welcome to October 8th, 2020. We made it. Now we just have to wait for the vaccine and we'll be better. Are we recording this? Because I think it'd be nice to have a copy of this since the planning department will be unveiling the active transportation plan for us.
Yes, sir, we are.
You're recording? Cool. Well, yes, I mean, this meeting will primarily be handed over to Kirby and his crew from the city of Laredo. But prior to that, we obviously wanted to thank the city, the councilmen and the council and the mayor for supporting the naming of the hike and bike trail behind parallel to Delmar Boulevard, the Mike Doyle Hike and Bike Trail. The signs went up really fast. I think from the day the council kind of approved it, I mean, it was like in no time. So also, of course, thanking the staff that put it up, the Parks and Rec Department and everyone involved. It's a nice tribute to a man that really, so greatly contributed to the cycling community. I mean, not only did he run, a fantastic bike shop, but, he was really a big part of the advocacy of this community. And he was a big part of Bike Laredo. I mean, he would come to every meeting with a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm, and he would lend his expertise and would do whatever he needed to do. So it's really nice that we all could pay tribute to him in that way. So having said that, I think if everyone's ready for the drum roll and for Mr. Sneidman and his crew, we're just going to hand it over to you, and you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And if I can, allow me to introduce myself and the team here. My name is Kirby Sneidman. I'm the director for the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the Laredo-Webb County Area, MPO, which is the transportation planning organization for the region. And today what we want to present is the final review of the major points of the plan in lieu of the plan coming out being delivered to council, commission, to the policy board and technical committees of the MPO shortly. And with that, let me also pass it over to our team. Gracie, Juan, and Jason, if you could introduce yourselves in that order.
Good afternoon, Graciela Briones, part of the MPO here with the planning department.
Yes, good afternoon. Juan Mendive, MPO Long Range Planner.
Good afternoon, Jason Hinojosa. I'm the Long Range Planner with the Planning Department.
Thank you. This has been not only a huge team effort with everybody outside of our department and our MPO, but it's been a big team effort in here internally. One of the things when I first got here was to ask the city council and the MPO for more staff so that we could focus not just on current planning, but we could focus on long range planning, working on these plans for the city and changing the model from, hey, let's hire some outside consultants to let's train the staff to be able to do either all or the majority of this work internally so that we keep that expertise here in the city and we build that expertise over time. So that's exactly what we're doing. This will be our first plan we'll put out, the first of many to come. So today's presentation is, we are not quite ready to present the plan to you, but we're going to present the conclusions of the plan. And then we also have something to share with you, a link with everybody where you can review in depth. And we're going to show you that. It's a really great resource for you to look and provide recommendations before we finish this plan up.
And may I interrupt for 1 second?
Yes, sir.
Only because I do see that we do have a council member, Mercurio Martinez, online, which is fantastic because we want to, bring in as much of the elected officials as we can. I hope your presentation has some of the data that you presented at previous meetings in terms of the surveys and things, just to bring him up to speed?
We will touch on that, but
Okay.
he is going to hear this presentation a couple more times. Well, not this one, but he will be well presented to in terms of this plan. We're going to present once to council. We took a step back in terms of getting the plan out. We don't want to just bring it for adoption in one meeting. We want to have a presentation and then bring it for adoption. And that will provide the council an opportunity to ask questions, provide input. So they'll have a couple meetings there where they can do that. So today we'll go over the chapters, we'll review our network, and we'll talk about the next steps. So in just a review of what the chapters cover, if you want to, Juan and Jason, trade off. Juan starting with chapter 1. We'll talk a little bit about what's in each chapter. We're not going to go through exhaustively, but we want to give you an overview of what the plan looks like chapter to chapter. Juan?
Sure. Thank you, Kirby. Yes, on chapter 1, of course, we start talking about, just explaining a little bit about active transportation. Some people in our community may not be aware of what active transportation is. Then we go into details about why we need active transportation. It has several benefits, such as economic benefits, health benefits, other societal benefits. So we do go into that. As you see here, you have a quote. In 2020, the rate of physical inactivity increased to 29% in Webb County. This has led to an obesity rate of 38% in the region. So, this is a health indicator here, and we want to showcase that and talk about how active transportation can improve health outcomes in our community.
Chapter 2, existing conditions. What we did is we reviewed all the data that's been available from plans to, from the previous plans from 1975 all the way through to the most recent ones in 2020 with the RMA studies, as well as collected data from traffic, from the census, all departments, MPO, engineering. And some of the key highlights that the key indicators we were pulling out were the socioeconomic and environmental data sets, as well as, reviewing what were some of the issues impacting the community, whether it be financially or how to get across town. And so some of the data that we displayed, you can see Laredo on the right side of the map displays
he's not going to write
the elevation as it flows towards the river. And a large part of our elevation in the city is an average about 400 to 450 feet. So there's not much change.
like short.
So some great identifiers of how we were going to use this data to plan out the future.
Don't write anything down.
Sorry, Guillermo had to mute you there. Yes, so with chapter 1, we present the introduction and we make the case for active transportation in Laredo. And this would be the chapter anyone could go to say, hey, why? Okay, look, Laredo's different. People don't bike here. No, we make the case that for walking, biking, using transit, Laredo is actually a prime place for active transportation. And
I'm sorry, Kirby, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but now that you're the host of this meeting, you have to let people in. And I think Councilman Olgelt is trying to get into the meeting.
okay,
It's a new Zoom feature that is not driving us crazy. Everyone, you have to let everybody in now. It was a security breach. Thank you.
I just admitted them. And if you see others, just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Feel free to interrupt. So in chapter 1, we make the case. In chapter 2, we present the existing conditions. And as it might surprise some of y'all from before, we're not starting from scratch here. Besides the comp plan, which all of you may be familiar with, that encouraged active transportation, there were over 20 other plans and studies from the 1970s all the way till today that said, hey, we need to be doing this. So we're not pulling this out of thin air. We're actually building, we're building on a lot of great work that's been done in the past. On chapter 3.
Sure. So we had a series of public engagement activities to develop some of the recommendations in the plan and to find out more about the needs in the community in terms of active transportation. So as Kirby just mentioned, we looked at previous planning efforts and we built off that. We did a public survey, and I'm glad to report that just as of yesterday, we now have 1,162 surveys. Jason he sent out an email to the school districts, and they were able to share that with their students. So we've seen a big jump in terms of the number of students that have participated, or the under 18 demographic. I'm not sure, Jason, you have those specific numbers?
I do. It's gone up as of from yesterday to today. We are at 1,500, just shy of, it's like 1,530.
Oh,
So
wow.
we've got a strong response from our students. We encourage the superintendents from both schools to really get the students engaged with this, and their voice was important to us, as everybody else's was, but we had a very low turnout from them, from 18 and under, because of the summertime. And so long story short, there's 563 students under the age of 18 that have responded. Now they are our largest participants in the plan.
That is fantastic, and that's what we were shooting for all along the line. Look, you old people out there, we'll listen to you, but it's the young people of Laredo that we're planning for. This is their city that they're going to inherit, and we really wanted to get their thoughts and their agreement that this is something they want, and they do. Now you can look a couple pictures from some of the engagement we did this summer. We had meetings in almost every district. People from every district attended these meetings. This is me starting my recruitment efforts a little early. I figure we can get some city planners thinking young, maybe 20 years from now, while hopefully still around, they're ready to go. Chapter 3, just want to further highlight that we're not building from scratch. There's a lot of public input that's gone on in previous years. In particular,
Bájale un poquito, por favor.
Hi, thank you. If you're
Like
not-
right.
Okay, thanks. So the point being that we made a great effort to do a lot of public outreach through the course of this plan, but it builds on a lot of public outreach from previous plans, in particular the comprehensive plan completed in 2017. Got thousands and thousands of participants in meetings and online, and okay, so, and we not only looked in the aggregate of the city, trying to get with surveys and public meetings, but we zoomed in on the individual and said, hey, who are these individuals in the community that actually use active transportation? And we included their stories and we included their input in the plan to make sure that we ground tested the conclusions we came to with the people that are actually out there using it. Chapter 4, Jason?
So the recommendations on chapter 4, we broke them out per mode. So the first ones are bicycle, and they're listed in highest priority, starting from A, working their way down.
Actually,
So-
Jason, if you don't mind, I'm going to take over this section because I don't want to review each of these individually, but I want to explain what we're going to do. We probably won't need the whole hour today, but we'll have some Q&A at the end. But with what we want to present, we want to give you your own time to review not only these recommendations for each mode, which you've already reviewed, some of you have reviewed before and helped us prioritize these. So what you're seeing now, we showed you previously, but we've actually ranked them now. We sent them out to everybody in the stakeholder groups and said, help us rank these, what are most important. So what you're seeing now is our recommendations ranked by you. We're going to send this out to you in a Google Doc so that you can review it at your own time and give us any feedback. And we're also going to send you something else you can review, which I'll show you in just a little bit. So we have recommendations for bicycle mode of traffic, pedestrian mode, transit mode, for connecting that last mile, which includes micromobility, for wayfinding, which we feel it was so important, it warranted its own section. We really feel like there's a lot of improvement, a lot of low-hanging fruit that we can do by just advertising what we already had. One of the questions we had in our survey was we asked people, how many trails do we have in the city? And overwhelmingly, people guessed the lowest number, where in reality we have how many, Jason?
It's over 15.
We have over 15 trails, but the majority of people thought we had,
5.
1 to 4, which meant that the majority of people and the majority of people don't know how much we have. There's some great resources. So wayfinding, advertising, especially to drivers as they're driving by, maybe going over an overpass saying, oh, I didn't realize there's Chacon Creek was down there. Wow, I'm going to check that out next time. Bring my bike there. And then we have recommendations for other that didn't quite fit in any other category. So again, we're going to send this out to you. Please give us any input you have. They were ranked by the group. Chapter 5, Jason, implementation.
So some of the stuff we wanted, or Juan, do you want to take this one?
Sure, yeah, that's fine. So yeah, for the implementation, we build it around a strategic framework that focuses on project prioritization, project management, performance management to make sure we're measuring the success of the plan, funding, which is also very important, and definitely most important is continued stakeholder and community involvement. So there's going to be opportunities throughout the plan's life to engage stakeholders and continue getting input from the community. An annual benchmark that we're establishing is to construct at least 4 miles of bike facilities, which are identified in the proposed network. And that's
Per year.
Per year, that's right.
4 miles per year. So Juan, here's a softball for you. How good would this plan be if it didn't provide a path forward, like a very realistic path forward on how we can achieve the goals in this plan? How valuable would the plan be if it didn't have that?
We wouldn't be able to achieve the vision or what we're setting out to do. It would not be realistic.
Yeah, yes, I know it was a softball one. That was an easy one, but it's true. It's true. If any plan doesn't have a roadmap of how to actually implement it, then it's not going to be a very effective plan. So we took a lot of time and effort thinking through, okay, once we get this plan adopted, how can council use it? How can the engineering department use it? How can the traffic department use it? Where is it actually going to affect our policy on a city level? Which leads us to chapter 6, which I'll speak about. We took ordinance and resolutions from dozens of cities across the country, narrowed it down, worked it out to a recommendation where we are actually going to provide in this plan a draft ordinance that the city can adopt for a complete streets policy. Now, what does that mean? That means that we will have a policy in place that says we need to build our streets a certain way, including the pedestrian, including the bicycle, unless there are certain conditions that are met. And in other words, we don't want it to be so discretionary, because I know, Ramon, you've run into the situation where you're presenting a road design and you're saying, hey, here's the road design. Here's how we used to do it a few years ago in the cost. And then here's how we do it if we build it to the comp plan, which technically we're required to. Well, when you do that, when you give council those two options, you say, here's one that costs 1 million, here's one that costs 2 million. In that very meeting and the pressures of that meeting, they may be only focused on the dollar figure, not focused on the benefit it provides to the community to invest in our active transportation. So we're asking council to make a commitment when they adopt this complete streets plan, a commitment that says, okay, we know it's going to be more expensive in many cases to include transit, bicycle, and pedestrians as modes of traffic that we care about. But we're making that now. We're creating a policy where we bind ourselves to build our streets this way, but there's an outlet. Don't worry, there will be an outlet. And we'll provide that outlet in a way that makes sense for the engineering department, for the city to say, well, there may be some cases where it's not warranted, and we don't just want to put bike lanes and pedestrian paths down where they don't make sense. But for most cases we do, and it's about how to find it, in the pressure, we want to take that pressure off. So you don't have to make that call. That's how we build our streets in Laredo. So just to remind you again, do you remember this from last time? Now, somebody who has an answer to who wasn't remembering, actually, how about Councilmember Martinez, if you're there? How many miles? Oh, so if you're looking at this, you're looking at basically the city, a map of the city. It's about 20 miles north and south if you go city limit to city limit, north to south, and the city is about 10 miles wide from the west to the east. So given that you have some parameter for knowing it's 20 miles long, 10 miles wide, what would you guess how many miles of bicycle paths, both trails and lanes, how many would you guess we have in the city right now? Do I need to unmute you?
No, I'm here.
Just take a wild guess. It's okay, whatever your answer is. I'm
No.
hoping you don't know. 'cause
40,
if-
50 miles?
Okay, 40, 50 miles. And what would you guess, knowing the city is 20 miles long, tall, and 10 miles wide, what would you guess is the longest connected path? In other words, how long could you ride on your bicycle where you wouldn't have to, you could stay on one path, you wouldn't have to get off and get on another one? How
Ooh,
long?
I don't know if it's the northern part of the loop or maybe
Yes.
that bike trail off of Shiloh.
How many miles would you guess you could go?
Probably, I don't know, 5 miles or so.
Hey, not bad, not bad. We have about 35 miles in total, but our longest connected path, the longest bike ride you could take on one dedicated path is only 4 miles, and it's Chacon Creek. So even though our city, 20 miles long and 10 miles wide, the longest path we have is 4 miles. So one of the things we recognize is it's not that we have a lack of miles, although generally I think we'd all like to see more miles. Our biggest problem is that our mileage, it's not connected. So even though we have 35 miles, you can only go 4 miles on any one stretch. So what we're saying is we don't necessarily need more bike routes. Although we want them, we don't need them. What we need is more connected bike routes. And if this is the case, we're going to make to council because this is tough, but we want to make it clear. This is what we're asking. Double, connect, multiply. When it comes to bicycle lanes, double, connect, multiply, connect being the most important. What are we saying here? We've outlined a plan for how we can extend our bicycle network, where in the next 10 years, we're only asking to double the amount of miles. Like Juan said, we're asking about 3-4 miles a year. That will double what we have from 35 miles to 70 miles. So that's the first column. We're only asking to double the amount of total miles. However, we're asking council only add miles where it connects to an existing bicycle path. And we've outlined that. We've done all the research we've done. If we do that, in other words, so there's a great opportunity of a street and, you got some money, district priority funds, and somebody's saying, hey, Councilmember Martinez, can you put some bike lanes down here? What we're asking you to say is, well, sorry, no, we're following a plan, and the plan only allows us to add bike lanes to where it's already where it connects to something existing. So we're gonna have to wait for that one. We're gonna prioritize connections only. If we do that, if we only add bicycle lanes where we already have a connection, then by only doubling in 10 years, we will actually multiply by 16 the longest path that can be traveled. And if we do that, if we add 35 miles strategically, we can actually connect 70 miles of bike lanes in the city. You could ride 70 miles on your bike and not get off a connected bike path or protected bike path. Let me take a little set. I'm gonna pop out of this presentation to show everyone what we're gonna send you. We're gonna send you a link after this presentation, within an hour after this presentation, that shows you exactly what we're talking about on a map that you can zoom in and out of. So it's gonna look like this. It'll be a Google map. And if you go to actually it'll look like this. Here's the preview. Down in the lower left, you can change the map. If you want to see an aerial view with all the detail, otherwise a more simplistic map, you just change that down there. You've got 4 categories. You can click these layers on and off. What you've got right now, what I've got clicked on are the existing bikeways in the city. Here's what we're proposing to add. And by the way, you can extend this to see all of them. And there's detail in each one of these. If you zoom in, if you click on it, it'll tell you. If you click on the bicycle lane.
It has it on the left side.
Yeah, on the left side, it'll show it's existing off streets, 1.29 mile. So you've got all that information there. So what we've got here is existing. You click on this layer, you can see what we're proposing in 10 years. So in 10 years, if we add these bicycle lanes, then, and some of these are already proposed, but if we dedicate ourselves to making resources available for these, we'll multiply our connected bicycle lanes by 70. You'll be able to ride 70 miles in the city on bike lanes. And then in the next 20 years, we will double that again, 35 more miles, but we'll multiply by 3 or 4 the amount of bicycle lanes you can ride. And then it build out another 35. And so we're not talking about adding thousands of bike lane miles. We're talking about every 10 years doubling what we have, adding 35 additional miles. That's very doable. That's 3 or 4 miles a year. And we've got the numbers to show that in the plan about how much we're talking about money-wise. Yes, it's going to take money, but it's not going to take more than you think. So back to the presentation. Let's talk a little bit about next steps. We are working on finishing up the plan. We want to get your feedback with what we're going to send out. So I'm going to send out some links today. And if you want to provide feedback, we'll give you to the end of the week on it. That's a quick turnaround, but we want to wrap up this plan soon, get it ready so we can publish it out there, get it to everybody in this group, the whole city. We'll publish the draft everywhere. And then, of course, we'll bring it to, these are the different meetings we're going to bring it to. We're going to bring it to the MPO, we're going to bring it to the city, and we're also going to bring it to the county as well. We want the county to adopt the complete streets policy for the county as well. So we're going to start with the MPO Technical Committee, October 13th. Then we'll take it to the Planning Commission for a workshop, the City Council for a workshop. So both those, there'll be presentations that will be 5 to 10 minutes, and then any questions that the council or commission have. And then we'll bring it to the MPO Policy Committee for a workshop. And then we're coming back to actually adopt the plan in November. Planning Commission, City Council, and MPO all in November. And then the county will get to as soon as they can be able to make time on their county commission night. So that's the plan. Those are our next steps. Are there any questions from the group? Any discussion?
Can I just quickly interject? I'm sorry, Councilman, go. Councilman.
Go ahead, Frank.
So I just wanted to throw a couple of things out. Of course, you know, we're just eating all this up. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. However, you will probably be taking this out and not only to the elected officials at the MPO and the City Council, but also, you know, generally the public itself that have not participated in this idea or have not participated in the surveys that you conducted. And I just want to make sure that you set the table and you hit the key points that you'll probably be asked, like, why do we even need this? And I saw some of them, which was great, when you talk about the cost of transportation in a community of our poverty level, that you want to give every Laredoan the option. They can ride a car, they can have 2 cars, they can have 3 cars, but if they can't afford it, what you're doing is you're providing an opportunity for other people to get around where mobility doesn't cost them a third of their living, their earned living.
You're exactly right. You read our minds. We won't be giving the same presentation to each group. And when we bring it, we're working on different presentations. We're going to tailor it towards the audience. This group, just in working with everybody here, I know you already get it, you already understand it. But yes, we do need to make the case. We're not going to quickly go through that. That's going to be the biggest part of the presentation when we bring it to council and the MPO, is to say, hey, why do we need this? Because there are a lot of people who don't think we need it, but we want to show you that there are a lot of people that do, and there are some really good reasons why we need this. And I know it's not a slam dunk. We need to make the case for this.
Absolutely.
Not only, well, it may be a slam dunk to get this adopted, but to actually implement this, it's not a slam dunk. And so we want to make the case for it. People agree and they believe it and they stick to this, and so that we're advocates for it and they support us.
Well, let me tell you, and by the way, some of the things that you'll be hearing, I mean, you know, because we were involved in some of the state issues and even the national issues on active transportation.
Yeah, the governor said, the old way of developing road is not, we're not going to keep building roads the same way. We're not going to keep building freeways, and there's not going to be millions and millions of dollars flowing from TxDOT. Yes, we're definitely going to include that quote from the governor that says, hey, this is a Republican governor, Republican state saying, hey, y'all, it's not going to keep going like this. you need to do other, he actually talks about other modes of traffic and his daughter who is at university and doesn't use a car. So we're definitely going to pull that in.
And I think what you need to have as part of the conversation, if you all would, kind of pull some pages from Brownsville, from the book Bikeonomics. There's a very cogent, concise economic argument for all the money you save by building bike lanes in comparison to by building traditional roadways and stop signs and lights, etc. So there's, and then there's the increase in property values. In other words, you're expanding the tax base by just repurposing real estate that the city already owns by and large. And so I think when, especially when you're speaking with the MPO, especially with a lot of our counterparts within the county, where things are kind of rural, kind of removed, kind of provincial, if you're able to explain to them for how, pennies on the dollar, you can really interconnect and really pull vehicles off of the roadways. I mean, you can bring in all the epidemiology arguments and the recreation stuff. That's cute and quaint, but I think the bicycle rubber hits the road when you talk about the money that can be saved and the money that can be made through the expansion of the tax base. That's really the only, I mean, if you're talking that language, you might even seek an endorsement from the Chamber of Commerce, the different school districts. You would get an endorsement possibly from the Mile One, Laredo Development Corporation. I think there's all sorts of hidden partners that once they understand the bikeonomics of the bike lane network, they're natural allies that we would otherwise not pick up. So anyway, that's just,
That's a great point, Juan. I hope you're taking some notes here. We will definitely look into the chapter there on bikeonomics. And
Kirby, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's some more people trying to get into the meeting.
oh yeah, sure.
Kirby,
Councilor
also,
Martinez?
yeah, also, John, I know John Porter and had been working on the Chacon Creek. I know we have 4.3 miles of trail there. If we can extend from the northern point, which is the Benavides Park, and go up the Chacon Creek, we can link it, and I think that's low-hanging fruit. I know we're about to get some good money
absolutely. And
from
that worries me, but at the
from
same
the
time, I
Fed,
mean,
so that
Councilor
so we can
Martinez,
improve the Chacon
we're going to send you
and add these trails.
We're going to send you this so that you can view it. And if what you're recommending is not on here, you let us know and we will take that in consideration.
Okay.
Any other
I
questions?
noticed on that map, there were, even within the 10-year plan, there were so many gaps of, bike trails, bike lanes that were just so close to each other that it would seem, foolish to not just reach out a little bit more and make that connect. Like for instance, the Mike Doyle hike and bikeway and the Plantation Loop and that, trail to nowhere on the upper Zacate Creek. I mean, that seems like it should definitely be tied in. And it seems like that's something very doable within the next, 10 years. I mean, we're not talking about an outer loop from mile marker 18 to bridge 4-5. I mean, we're taking 10 years in theory to do that. I'm sure when by it's all said and done in Laredo, dog years or in mañana years, maybe it comes out to a little bit more than that, but it seems like we could give and I get what you're doing, I think, which is you don't want to oversell and under deliver. But I think that if you're able to show this connectivity, where the distance isn't that far, you might even get a lot of neighborhood buy-in that you would otherwise not get. And then also just beware of, the whack jobs out there that think that this is some sort of UN conspiracy to take away our right to drive cars. I know you've done a great job of that, Kirby, in saying, hey, it's all of the above, but just continue to reinforce that so that the channels of the world can shut the fuck up. Excuse my French.
Well,
as long as we're not recording this, I think that's okay. Oh, we are recording this.
yeah, we'll beep that. We'll beep that out. Can
So,
I just respond to that,
Put it
Frank?
on a repeat loop. Just put it on a repeat loop.
Frank, if I can respond to that really quickly, just to say, we didn't just draw lines on a map and say, oh, this looks pretty, let's go down here. We really thought through this. We looked at the right of way. We looked at the costs. We looked at the political capability of, we looked at all these things and we stuck to a plan that to us is modest, but 3 or 4 miles a year is more than we've ever done. So yeah, we'd love to do all this in 10 years, but let's be realistic about how long it's taken us to get where we are, and let's push ourselves forward. And if we go faster than this, no problem at all. The plan is there, it's outlined, we can get ahead of it. If we all of a sudden got $40 million worth of funding from a state grant or, a bond levy because the citizens voted for it, we can knock these things out. But barring any of that, we assumed things are going to stay the same funding wise. Let's be realistic and let's go for the most realistic route possible. Now, all that said, once you look this over, so if we can, I don't want to spend too much time going over specific routes today because I want you each to spend that time individually looking at it. We're going to send you this map. And if you see something we don't, please send us and we'll take a look at it. But probably there's a 98% chance we already thought what you thought, and there were reasons why that's not as easy as you think it may be. So we have really put a lot of time and effort into this, and hopefully that's reflected. Frank?
It looks awesome.
For sure. No, for sure. It's amazing that we're here and you did it in the time that you did it. I know that you really dedicated the MPO staff and your planning staff, and you put them, you brought this to the front burner, and it's fantastic. The only couple, going back to some of the conversations we just had, I really would hopefully like for us to have some additional data that's available to us from other communities to kind of reinforce the need for this in Laredo. Like we mentioned earlier, I mean, showing just the cost of transportation in this community is important. I think showing the health and wellness benefits of active transportation is important. The economics of it is important. But let's not forget also the importance that we're coupling this together with public transportation, how they work hand in hand together in other communities and why that's so important. It not only reinforces people to use El Metro, because I think Ms. San Miguel can probably, has already been telling us at many meetings and Monica as well, that, that a lot of these active transportation users use El Metro. And so making that connection stronger needs to be another argument. And really, the things that we hear all the time, and by the way, it's funny, like we go to other conferences and we hear people say the climate in Minnesota, the climate in New York, the climate in Seattle, the climate is hot. So there's some great examples of other communities about our size that have started this process 5 to 10 years ahead of us. Communities like Brownsville, like New Orleans, which was one of our model cities for the comp plan in terms of population and size, El Paso, and even Corpus Christi, where you can show, yes, climate is, everyone has their climates, but they still forged ahead and have successful active transportation plans. And that's important. And the last one is, if you go back to some of the, the mobility chapter in the comp plan, where people said, but you're going to be taking away my car lanes by doing this. No, we're not. we have the data in the comp plan that illustrates that we cannot build enough roads to get out of the congestion that this city is going to be, what is forecast for this city in the future. We're not there yet, therefore nobody feels it, but you know, you can talk to other cities that have grown and are dealing with it now, and they're trying to reverse that cycle by implementing these strategies. And if you can somehow kind of like crop that into a nice little 3 or 4 slides, I think it reinforces the argument of not why not, but why are we not doing this now?
Thank you, Frank. And I think, Juan, let's make a note. I think I would like to get, since you have such great input, we'll show you our presentation before we take it to Commission Council, get your thoughts, because you've taken this issue to them before, and I want to get.
Yeah, sign me up for that, just because I happen to know my audience pretty well, though I frequently ignore everything that they're thinking about, but I at least know them well enough to guide you so that you can.
I would really appreciate that, and thank you
my pleasure
for taking some of that time. But Frank, all those things are in the plan, but one thing I want to stress is that this is not the end of the conversation on active transportation. And one of the big reasons I wanted our staff to do this plan and not hire out to consultants, because I want to build the before this plan, there were no experts on active transportation in Laredo. Now we have our staff who have done all the research, done the time, and now we have some experts on active transportation in Laredo because they've done the plan. And that's going to continue. So we're going to continue to have yearly summits. We're going to continue to encourage active transportation. We're going to have staff that are focused on that. And we're going to continue to have workshops and trainings. And I mean, believe me, this is not the end of it. This is a big part of the transportation puzzle going forward. But the value of this plan is not that it encapsulates every idea, every case. It's actually not going to be that long of a plan, only about 60, 70 pages long is what we're shooting for. What it is an outline for how we've already got so many plans before that said we need to do this. This is the plan that says how we start doing it. And that's the value of this plan, is that it provides that outline, and the conversation will continue. Anybody else?
Yes, I see Miss San Miguel is asking, can she comment? So if you want to unmute your mic.
Ms. San Miguel, you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. Just wanted to add a little bit on what Frank was mentioning in regards to the trails and all that. Just a note, a comment on, I guess, marketing for El Metro, but every time that we go out and pursue funds for what we call the bike and ride plazas, we go that, I guess, extra mile in checking these maps and trying to install these bike and ride plazas close to, as much as possible, to these bike trails. So just for everybody's information, we're doing or taking that added, I guess, precaution into making sure that the funds that we receive go in line with these maps and these plans. Both of our MPO funded projects take that into consideration as well. And then again, I mean, we have had support from a number of council members that have invested a good amount of dollars in their districts to make sure that we have those sunshades, those canopies, and those bus amenities that can draw people out to try, the transit system, and also, again, the bike trails and things like that. Because we see that sometimes people take advantage of the bus stops to take a little rest when they're biking, to fix up their bikes or whatever it is that they're doing. So we're going to continue and improve our bus stops, and again, taking into consideration these bike trails. We're trying to keep our amenities as much as possible close to the information that we receive from you all. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. San Miguel. Great points. Well, it's about that time. We are going to send you a couple links within the next hour. Everybody will be able to review in depth the recommendations of the plan and the routes, the bicycle routes that are being proposed. Again, if you have any feedback, please give it to us, and we'll be going forward with meetings to present this to all of our elected officials and our officials in the city and in the county and in the MPO, and we'll ask them to adopt it in the next couple months.
Yeah, any chance you would have that ready to go, like say, I don't know, a couple weeks from now?
Well, I don't know if you missed the slide. I'll show again real quick. This is our, let's see. This is what we're shooting for our schedule of presentations and adoption. So yeah, very, very soon here in the next.
Okay, all right, we're good. Awesome. Well, as usual, Kirby, you've set the gold standard for presentations by staff to the city. I was talking to Arturo Garcia, and he's like, man, he keeps totally upstaging us with his PowerPoint presentations and his data analysis, and so I can't help but tip my hat to you again, sir.
Well, I appreciate that. I have to do something to offset the other comments I make that are not so popular.
Yeah.
Telling,
more barbecue. More barbecue.
Barbecue and nice presentations might keep me employed.
Yes.
That's what I'm hoping.
I've got my fingers crossed, brother.
Telling you that we need to really change things in here if we're going to be the city we deserve, its residents deserve. Not everyone likes hearing that. So.
Yes, sir. Well, keep up your great work.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it's a team effort. Thank you, MPO staff. And thank you, everybody, for letting us present. I'll turn it back over to Regina.
Thank you, Kirby. I just wanted to see if Councilmember Algelt and Frank had anything else they wanted to say, any other updates or anything else around Mike Doyle.